Realizing your property's full potential. I think we all kind of know that we've really gone through a really difficult time within this industry, and we think that there's that we can all come out of this a lot stronger. It's been a terrible 18 months. We look like we might still have a little bit further to go of this kind of COVID. Without using kind of swear words or anything like that, the COVID crisis. I think that there's a lot of ways that we can come out of this stronger, and what we've tried to present to you today is really some of the greatest innovators that we think are around, and some of the people with a lot to say about the future of hospitality and how it can actually kind of really be improved as we're actually coming out of this. So with that, I'm going to be introducing these fine gentlemen here. So just to introduce myself, again, I'm Richard Volter. I'm the founder of Mews. I have a much better beard on that picture than I do in my current state, so I just wanted to excuse myself for that. But we've got Charlie from the Student Hotel, Klaus from Ideas, Rami from Lifehouse, and Bertrand from Accor. So taking it in that, I thought we'd spend a little bit of time getting everyone to introduce themselves and their the brand that they're representing. So one by one, I'll go first to you, Charlie. So I think the Student Hotel for a lot of people basically is and has been basically a really innovative concept, and I think that the way that you combine all different types of living arrangements for students and basically other travelers alike, I think is really innovative, and it's a very kind of different and new concept. How do you see yourself basically kind of representing a future of hospitality itself, or how would you frame what you're trying to build with the Student Hotel?
Yeah, thanks for being here, Richard, and it's nice to see everyone. Yeah, I mean, I find it really interesting, especially what the pandemic's done for us as a company and us as an industry. My background was student housing, so I started as a student housing company, and through various regulations, 15 years ago when I moved to Holland, I had to build a hotel to deliver rooms to students for a year stay. And then, of course, we're a hotel license, so mums and dads came along, fantastic. We saw that the generations were getting closer and closer together. Of course, then the kids with sort of 3-month contracts with Nike, first ever jobs came in, so we started giving them some spaces. So co-living came along. We had some space on the ground floor, and we thought, should we rent this to WeWork? We thought, well, let's just do it ourselves. So yeah, co-working was born, and slowly by slowly, we've really become a very important destination for the neighbors as well to come and use our lobbies, and of course we add all the community tools and all the well-being and all the bells and whistles that go with it. But I think before the pandemic, the hotel industry didn't really see us as a hotel, and the student industry didn't really see us as a student housing company, and there is no name for this combination of co-working, co-living yet. So I think what the pandemic for us has done is, and the industry has really shown that having a diversified top line is really important. All of our hotels were cash flow positive during the crisis. We had a global occupancy of above 50%. So we can really show that we've survived the pandemic pretty well. Now that the students are back, the hotel market is up and down. We've allocated as many rooms as we can from our previous hotel inventory over to our student inventory. So we added 1,500 rooms to our student inventory by not building a new room. So 20% of our inventory we added, and we filled them with students. So now we're a very high occupancy of students, and we see the hotel is now falling a little bit because we got negative pickup because of COVID. But we expect January, February, when the second semester comes in, we can start allocating those rooms back. So the hybrid model is really coming to life. And I think, you see a lot of the hotel operators really now understanding the benefits of this model financially and stableness wise, of course, but also the community that we add and the liveliness that we have on the ground floor is very attractive for the millennials and the Gen Z travelers, whether it be new generation corporate travelers or leisure travelers. So yeah, I think this crisis has really, helped us sort of establish this model and establish us as a proper hospitality player.
That's great. Yeah. No, I think that's really, really inspirational. So moving on to Klaus, I think we'll be coming back to a lot of those themes later. But Klaus from Ideas, I think everyone knows you guys as the foremost revenue management system, basically kind of out there. And I think that you were also at the forefront of looking at different types of spaces within hospitality and out of them. I think you had a revenue management product for not only rooms but also kind of parking from a very, very early stage. How do you see, is the demand kind of shifting in that more and more hotels basically are trying to kind of explore some of these different revenue models, different ways of actually kind of looking at pricing, whether it's extended stay or anything like that? Does that pose particular challenges basically, or do you find that actually most of the hotels just want to actually kind of actually embrace the tool itself? Because we all know that the take up of revenue management systems basically hasn't been great. What major shifts are you seeing within your customers?
Yeah, thanks, and thanks for being on the panel with all these very, very innovative companies. Great to see everyone again on the joint session here. It's been really interesting. I think the one word that I use most often, and maybe it's the most overused, is convergence. Over the last 24 months or so, what we've seen is that you're absolutely right? People are trying out different business models, like Charlie and Student Hotel. They're trying out different things, from subscription models to using spaces differently, to managing all revenue streams, managing profitability rather than revenue, dealing with labor shortages and all the issues that we're talking about in the industry on a constant basis. You mentioned we've had other products for a while that allow companies or businesses to manage spaces. Yeah, we've had a car parking product since 2008. We have a function space revenue management system. We have a group pricing optimization system. We bought a company that does reporting in function space and events and catering a few years ago. So we have realized over the last few years that just managing rooms obviously is important, because it produces a large part of a hotel's profitability, not just revenue, but there's a lot of other revenue streams, right? And it's great to have Accor here. Accor has touted the augmented hospitality concept for at least 5 or 6 years now. And it probably kind of describes in many places what we see the industry evolving into, right? It's not just I have a room and I manage a room, or I optimize a room, or I have somebody staying in the room. I have a lot of things that people want to do while they're staying in and around my property or within my ecosystem, if it's not a property. And how do we then allow the guests to realize the full potential, which as a result will then realize the properties or the provider's full potential, right? Property is kind of a little bit of a small box there, right? It could be accommodation of any type, right? So that's kind of where we see the future going, and convergence is happening kind of everywhere. And you see that in how all of the companies that are on the panel today are approaching business.
That's great. No, thank you for that. So next on to Rami, I think that you guys are, especially in the US, but increasingly so, I think worldwide, you're really kind of seen as pushing the envelope when it comes to, how a tech first management company can actually kind of look. And I know that we're incredibly proud and lucky to be associated with you. But how do you see it basically, maybe from a US standpoint? Because I think that a lot of these different types of concepts have maybe sprung up in Europe. How do you see basically that flexibility in the technology being able to actually kind of drive innovation and maybe kind of drive a lot of this different type of convergence? And do you also see it, to a large extent in the US?
Yeah, and obviously thanks for having me, Richard. Great to be here. So yeah, my background's as a real estate investor, and we've kind of taken a very profitability centric approach to solving problems and innovating in hotel management and operations. Obviously a Mews customer and a happy one. And to the point that Klaus was making about adoption or convergence, if you will, we've taken the approach of it's tough to get hoteliers and hotels to adapt to new ways of thinking and new ways of leveraging technology. And so we've kind of taken a hybrid model where we're the operator and the software provider, such that we don't have to worry about adoption because we can guarantee that our hotels will use the right approach and the right software and the right way of operating a hotel that's really profit centric. And that's essentially the centricity that we think is most important. And again, perhaps from my bias as an investor. So we've been, we're really excited about the, API first ecosystem that's coming out. So we don't have to build all of the software, and we can leverage great products like Mews and like many other products we use to be really focused on the profitability side of the equation. And we think, long term, that management can really be somewhat autonomous. So in the concept of realizing your property's full potential, the hoteliers can focus on the guest experience and the brand and the real estate problems, and not have to focus on how do I operate finance or revenue management, what have you. Yeah.
And I think that's that kind of specialization, but also being able to kind of pick and choose from the best of breed, basically, is increasingly important, I think. So I think that brings us really, really well onto Bertrand and Accor, because I think that of the great houses of hospitality, I think you are probably kind of really at the forefront of actually showing how an enormous company with all of its inherent kind of different stakeholders can actually move in quite an agile way, basically, within this environment. And as Klaus was saying, I think that you've really kind of been at the forefront of touting augmented hospitality prior to it becoming cool, basically, in the last 24 months. So how do you see this, for Accor itself, and for from your vantage point, basically, do you think that this will be a blip, or do you really think that this is actually kind of the moment when augmented hospitality really kind of comes into its own from a worldwide perspective? Oh, you're still on mute.
Sorry. I really think that it will comes now, and even if we did some tests in the past with our Wojo division, which is really focused on bringing offices in the hotels, I think that we will need to rethink the hospitality and see what other place in the hotel we can share with guests, with neighborhoods and things like that. What new services we can provide to all those people, because it's like I think Klaus said, it's no longer only a room, it's an hotel with its space. So what about sharing your swimming pool with your neighborhoods? And I think with the pandemic we have learned that we need to reinvent, and we need to reinvent quickly to stay on the top of the market.
Nice. Yeah, so I think with that, we can maybe go to one of our first ideas. So I think within Mews, we like to kind of talk about, moving away from the room. And I think that the primary reason is that we really think that there's a huge amount of value basically stored in hospitality itself. I think when you look at, how much time somebody actually spends in a room or needs to spend in a room, it's usually kind of the time that they're actually kind of sleeping. So that's maybe 8 hours out of 24. So really you have a potential to basically get a kind of, to start looking at the other, 66% basically of that person's time that they're actually kind of in your care. So do you find that you're also kind of trying to experiment within your own thinking, with different ways of measuring really kind of moving away from just RevPAR towards really looking at some of the kind of the total revenue metrics. So whether that's, you know, revenue per average guest and basically looking at the total guest spend basically on their bill, or expanding that into kind of lifetime value. I'll maybe start with you, Charlie, on that point. How do you think about it from your point of view?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I wish I had the answer, because we're trying to puzzle it with you at the moment. I mean, I think revenue per guest is an interesting metric because it indicates that somebody's, you know, staying in your building and buying stuff. So assumably they'll be happy, otherwise they'd leave. So I think that's quite an interesting one. You know, we have there's a couple of things that are kind of going through my head. You know, we see that the co-working community and the student community are really coming much closer. The students today consider themselves startups. You know, we're questioning ourselves, can we even call them young professionals? You know, we see that the young professional co-working community really like to contribute to theses. They're all looking for interns, blah, 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 blah. They're looking to give back, and the students want to learn and start their businesses and stuff. I think when we start to look at that, then the contribution to community becomes an interesting metric to us as well. You know, having an accountant who lives opposite, who comes in with his Tupperware lunch every day, great, they're paying their rent in there for their office space, but what are they contributing to the community? And I think on the other side, if we've got somebody who's got a business that's flying someone in and they're staying, you know, their clients or investors are staying 16 times a week in the hotel room, yeah, should we give that desk away free? You know, so it's really interesting metric there that we really don't know the answer. We know that, I mean, we're kind of well on this journey. You know, we've got 25 hotels now with all of these different facilities there. We're blending spaces much more. We're blending teams much more. We're really focusing on one community. So revenue per paying guest is definitely a metric which we want to be able to monitor, because it means that all the systems need to be pointing in the same north. I'm not sure when we get there if it's going to be the metric for us. You know, we're also investing very heavily in prop tech to really understand where people are using and when people are using what space and how to use it. So that's also something that's not really sort of got a KPI or an acronym at the moment. But you know, I think this is really an emerging market for us anyway, for sure. With many different products under one roof, under the banner of hospitality.
Yeah, nice. I got little tinges of WeWork and its kind of community adjusted revenue in that one. So
but it's
I think that'll be an interesting one.
To stop on that, I mean, you know, they were famous for giving away their beer. You know, the cost of beer cost you know, pennies, but it drove a lot of publicity and it drove a lot of revenue in their offices. So I think that's what we find really interesting as well. You know, is it that we give away our co-working space because it means that we don't need to rely on booking for all of our corporate travel, because we've got the local corporate network staying and working in our building. So I think you're going to see a lot of these different, you know, where's your profit and where's your cost of acquisition, and playing around with that model.
Nice. I think that goes quite nicely to Klaus, because I'm sure that this really kind of makes your job even harder than it was before. Basically, these new different types of thoughts. But how do you think about this? Do you think that it will be towards, you know, revenue managing each separate service basically together and then combining it, or do you think that it's still basically about actually kind of revenue managing the space itself or the rooms themselves, and then in a way basically kind of leaving the other parts maybe to the CRM or to those parts?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and something we're debating all the time internally, right? Do you optimize for the totality, or do you optimize each individual and then take another layer, kind of another step on top of that, right? And then optimize for that. Back to your question about room revenue versus profitability, I think, you know, given that a lot of hotels or accommodation providers today don't even understand how to optimize revenue properly, and you referred back to that at the very beginning. The latest kind of report from Skift that came out, only 120,000 properties use some type of revenue management technology today, out of maybe 1 million or 600,000, depending who you believe. So there's still a lot of room to grow. So those accommodation providers will still need some form of revenue, RevPAR, RGI goal. And that'll mean a lot of the long tail independents, budget economy hotels are just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
On the other end, the very innovative companies like Charlie, Rami, Accor, and others, they're already looking at profitability, total revenue management, right? So they're already beyond kind of just talking about rooms, and we are having the capabilities of optimized profitability to incorporate acquisition costs, service costs, channel costs, all that into the models that allow a company to then optimize according to profitability and long-term value rather than just the room itself. Taking into account different revenue streams, taking into account different data streams, working with the CRS providers because they obviously, and PMS providers because they obviously need to be able to absorb that. And then the other, interesting conversation that's growing and has grown over the last couple of years is the whole concept of the attribute-based shopping, attribute-based pricing model, and the opportunities that merchandising enables for the industry over the next couple of years. And we see that accelerating significantly, especially over the last 6 to 8 months. So we've talked about it for the last 3 or 4 years. I think technology is now catching up, and it'll allow us to do a lot of exciting things over the next 12 to 18 months around attributes and selling more than just rooms. And that's been really, really exciting for us.
Yeah. But I think we always have a struggle whether it's merchandising or personalizing, because I think personalizing always kind of puts a much better focus on it. But maybe
just one thing, Richard, to that, and it's, for me, it's kind of a flow. It's first is digitization, right? What Charlie talked about, people using mobile devices, and we're collecting a lot of data. Then you can personalize with that data that you're gathering. And then you can start merchandising to the people that you know and that you've personalized your experience to, right? So it's kind of a step-phased approach. For me, merchandising is kind of the ultimate goal, but you need personalization and digitization to come first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I guess basically then you can go into commoditization as well, basically, and trading it. But Rami, actually, on that point, I think that you guys manage and operate some really diverse properties, basically, and you have some incredible boutique properties as well. So when it goes to kind of Charlie's kind of city within a city, you can see that combination. But how do you think that works on a let's say a kind of smaller scale, basically, and especially in that kind of boutique segment? Do you think that the same thing applies, or do you think that basically it's a different game?
Yeah, no, good question. I think that we certainly try to bifurcate the conversation between what are the business goals and then leveraging the hotel's real estate as a constraint to achieve those goals. So we start with profitability and say, okay, the property's fixed constraints are X, Y, and Z, and how do we maximize profitability within those constraints? And we've been focused, to your point, on smaller hotels that don't have the luxury of great common spaces or workspaces like some of the folks on this call. And so I think the conversations and the metrics that are becoming ever more important are the cost of acquiring the RevPAR and the net RevPAR more so than LTV, which I would agree with Charlie is going to be a longer term evolution. So for us, it's really figuring out how do we do quite well with direct bookings, I think 70% across our portfolio, and the meta search platforms have been quite a big player in this evolution. Google, obviously, the biggest player there, and figuring out how do we maximize net RevPAR. And I think with the pandemic, obviously, and much lower business demand, the prevalence and the reliance on transient customers and being able to acquire customers last minute, and making sure, to Klaus's point, that you have a revenue strategy and pricing model and marketing model that's emotionally agnostic to last minute bookings, because there's a lot of that happening right now. And again, being highly focused on net RevPAR, and the cost of acquiring guests outside of OTAs can be done far lower than the cost of an OTA, and if done properly. And I think when you get the guest data through a direct booking, obviously, while maybe not, the data may not be in place immediately, the incumbent LTV of that customer will certainly be higher. And if you have a website that communicates what the hotel's brand and story is in an independent hotel, that obviously plays to the advantage as well. So for us, we're focused on the cost side of the equation, on acquiring that revenue. But of course, great products like ideas and other revenue tools certainly help drive the top line as well.
Nice. And maybe just to follow up, basically, I think that, a lot of people always do talk about, attribute-based pricing, and especially in kind of the boutique segment, the attributes are really kind of the things that actually kind of make the hotel in the first place. So do you operate with that a lot? Do you kind of find some rudimentary ways of even kind of incorporating that? Or do you think that that's still something kind of out in the future, and nobody's really kind of mastered it?
If I'm honest, it's difficult. I think obviously products like Hotel Tonight and anything that has an authentication layer can kind of get around certain pricing nuances like that. I think, but the honest truth is there's a booking curve and there's a price evolution throughout that booking curve. And so the idea is to capture the most customers when the rates are highest and when demand is highest, and mirroring that matching pricing with your marketing spend at those points in the booking curve. So that's how we've been thinking about it, is there's a different customer profile throughout that booking curve. Last minute customer is maybe different than 30 days out, et cetera. And so that's how we've been thinking about targeting different types of guests.
Nice. So I think that actually kind of, I guess, basically as an overall picture that leads to the question for Accor. And I think that, the interesting thing there is that, you could, in this kind of way, have you kind of internally ever played around with the idea of, the brand kind of that you ascribe to a certain kind of property, as being determined by maybe the audience that's going there? Or do you look at the attributes basically of that property to actually kind of determine which brand would actually kind of work best, and having maybe even some kind of more of a fluidity around basically kind of essentially kind of having an optimizing way of looking at which brand actually kind of works best for a property over a longer period of time? Or how do you from that perspective, basically, there's a lot that I think that big brands basically like Accor can do and can be very, very creative in this sense.
Well, yeah, we have so many brands now that, yeah, they are all kind of different, and that's maybe why we are now splitting them into those segment of economic, mid-scale, premium, luxury, and then lifestyle, because you will not manage a lifestyle hotel like you manage a Novotel or Mercure, and lifestyle is really something that is super interesting. And to come back to the attribute selling, this is a topic I have worked on with Jean-Luc Adalian at that time. Yes, I think that the first company that will really succeed into building this attribute selling will be on the top of the competition, because that's I think the real future to attract the guest and to have the guest spending more in our hotels.
Nice. And And I think from that, you know, going back to the original question as kind of room only, I think, you know, within what you can actually kind of do within loyalty and things like that, you can, in a way, basically kind of start looking at basically kind of really monetizing more parts of an elongated kind of guest journey. Do you again kind of think of that basically from you know, even some of the targets and the metrics basically that you would like to kind of ascribe for, you know, would you have a different type of profile basically of, you know, expectations of revenue per guest per different segment, as you were kind of talking about it there, or is that still part of an evolution within Accor itself?
Well, I think we are starting to see that, and especially with all what we are bringing to our all premium guests, all the guys that are platinum and can live some real nice experience, like having the Paris Saint-Germain teams coming in your apartment and watching a game with you, and having a dinner and things like that. So yeah, I think those high level all members can have really better experience than the others, but that will also encourage the other ones to be at this stage, because yeah, with all the partnership we have now, I think we can really give some real and nice experiences.
Nice. And I think that actually, I was just picturing the idea of the entire Paris Saint-Germain coming into somebody's room to actually watch a game of football. That would be amazing, though.
We did it once.
But maybe that actually kind of leads us, I think, quite well to the next topic that we actually kind of had for this, which is what we think is the kind of the other side of you know, looking at especially when you're then looking at kind of guest spend and really kind of looking at loyalty and different ways that you can actually start thinking about you know, bringing in basically kind of different experiences and from that. And I really like your point about, for example, building out partnerships and things like that. So maybe if I bring it from the other way around, I'll start with where we ended the last topic, maybe with you, Bertrand. But do you think that that the partnerships are really the key to unlocking, you know, greater loyalty and a greater way to basically kind of embrace somebody within a setting of a property, and to really kind of bring in more and more kind of factors? So I guess in that way, basically, for a big brand like yourselves, basically, you can get away from the idea that basically somebody only needs to use you maybe once or twice a month, basically, but you become relevant to every day or every other day, basically, of a person's life.
Yeah, I do think that partnership are one of the key, and it's maybe why over the last year we did a lot of them, not only with Paris Saint-Germain, but with the Accor Hotel Arena in Paris, with the Sydney or the Accor Stadium in Sydney announced last week, and much more. So being able to give your guests some discount and some experiences on those items, it's very key. I think that the new partnership with Visa will also help, because if I take my personal case and my American Express with Air France, I know that I'm spending a lot of money with it to earn some miles and stay at my platinum level. And I do believe that a lot of guests will take it just to have more points, higher level, and be part of those nice experiences.
And I think, like, you know, I think that's a really interesting point, because I think we've all seen how Marriott managed to kind of weather the storm with a fantastic, I think, fintech offering, and really kind of looking at the power of points basically as something that goes on. So maybe kind of again segueing that into a question for Rami, because I think again, I think what you guys are doing is very, very interesting basically in that space. And I think maybe the other interesting kind of pivot that I think the industry has seen is for example, I wouldn't say that you're exactly the same type of concept, but somebody like Sonder has really kind of gone into maybe let's say extended stays and things like that, basically as a way to kind of to counteract it. Do you think that this is also a way that Lifehouse will kind of evolve to start looking at kind of ways of looking at extended stay and basically kind of also managing more and more lifestyle kind of options and managing people's lives basically in this kind of way, or are you kind of firmly fixated basically on the kind of transient model that is hitherto basically kind of been the dominant model of hospitality?
Yeah, I may take a confrontational stance on this, but we're not big believers, at least in the short term, of like the value of investing in a loyalty related program. I think modern consumers want optionality, and the ROI for us, at least, investing in something like this doesn't make sense. Obviously, for Accor, a completely different story. And for Sonder, a completely different story, because they have a very unique product within the short-term rental space. Our view is trying to figure out ways to deliver reliable guest experiences agnostic to the type of hotel. As you mentioned earlier, we have a pretty diverse portfolio of hotels that we operate, and thinking about ways to empower the actual hotels to generate loyalty for their specific property, because they're all different. But to your point, or the bullet here, pre and post stay communications and various versions of software and hardware can help deliver reliable guest experiences that organically translate to loyal customers. You're booking, when you are a transient user or guest, you want to just trust that whatever happens, I'm going to have an easy check-in, great Wi-Fi, be able to upgrade if I want, good bath products, hairdryer, whatever. And I want to know that before I make a purchasing decision. And through various types of content and pre-arrival communications and software, you can develop that reliability. And I think in that sense, that translates to loyalty long term, because the customer is making a purchasing decision from the internet. So that's how we're thinking about loyalty in the short term, is reliability oriented. But we're 85% of our portfolio is independent hotels that we manage. So not our branded hotels. So it's tough to build a loyalty program that makes any sense when our branded hotel portfolio is quite small.
Right. So you're not announcing a new product of life houses, basically, where you actually have a house for life or something like that.
We can't solve every problem at the same time, but I hope someone else figures it out, and we'd love to leverage that product. But I think there's some interesting things out there. Yeah.
Nice. So maybe pivoting to Klaus, I think that there's an interesting debate basically, I think, within for example the world right now, and on the one side you have something like subscription pricing and looking at ways to kind of fit that into to hospitality, and maybe that presents itself an interesting challenge of how somebody could price that up. Basically, I think you've seen the likes of Citizen M kind of trying it basically, but I don't think that that's been very kind of successful, because they've taken the kind of RevPAR to RevPAR approach to subscription. But then the other version of that basically that we think of is more of a kind of credit play with kind of buy now, pay later. Is this again something that some of your this is I'm sure that within revenue management basically there's a huge way of looking at this, but but I look at the same kind of ways that, you know, is the centrality of it, that you're either kind of revenue managing the customer or you're revenue managing the inventory, and how do you think of that basically, and how do you think of and how many requests are you getting basically to enhance your product in those different ways?
One thing for sure, for the last 18 months, a lot of people have tried out lots of different things, right? And subscription model is one of those things that people have tried out. I think the only company that I can imagine has done reasonably well is Inspirato, which is a high-end luxury, property management and vacation rental company. They've launched a subscription model about 18 months, 2 years ago. And I feel, knowing some people that have properties that are managed by Inspirato and kind of listening to the industry, I feel that they've done reasonably well. Would I love just think about what's been going on in the US with the consolidation of ski resorts, and how the purchase of a ski pass has changed over the last 5 years, right? You used to go, decide when to go skiing, and you would buy a day ticket. You would get to the mountain. When you get to the mountain, and you would pay for a day of skiing, and then you would go, right? And very few people would actually have a season pass. And over the last few years, Epic and others have, or Vail Resorts and others rather, have moved to push people into pre-purchase, spend $800 to have the right to maybe ski, 5, 6, 7, 10 days a year in any of their 24 resorts, right? So is that a model that I could see the hotel industry adopting? Generally, no, but in pockets, absolutely, right? Would I love to pay $1,000 to give me the right to stay an unlimited number of nights in certain properties or with certain lifestyle brands? Why not, right? I think that would be a fascinating model for certain brands and certain type of hotels, for certain kinds of people, right? And I think that would be very valuable for a specific segment of the market. I haven't seen it for anyone to do it successfully, but I feel that if you look at what's happening in the ski area and the ski pass area, that could be applied to the hotel industry easily, right? Now, is the customer loyalty changing? Coming back to your question, absolutely. And I agree with Rami, right? A company that has a very high knowledge of their customers and is able to cater to the customer's needs, other than through points and rewards programs, will do reasonably well, and to in fact much better than offering points, right? And it's a different need. When I go and travel on vacation, I often stay in very independent boutique properties that cater to my specific need of type of hotel I want to stay in for a leisure stay. And I don't really look at points or rewards kind of programs as the ultimate decision factor. I look at location and type of hotel and what's around the hotel rather than other areas. So there's a place for both. But the customer loyalty research, if you look at all the research that's been done over the last 2 or 3 years, it's about, again, personalization, value for money, and the type of experience that people are looking for for that type of vacation and travel that they're doing at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So maybe moving on to Charlie, because I always like to use your brand as basically in some ways being kind of pioneers of a certain type of kind of subscription model, because essentially a 3-year bachelor's degree or for a 4-year bachelor's degree, and basically kind of having a student accommodation alongside it is, to some extent a subscription model basically in and of itself. And when you think about a student loan, basically it's almost a kind of buy now pay later model as well, basically. But do you think of it in those ways, and do you envisage that this is, as you were kind of saying, that somebody starts out with you in one of your 25 different locations, and then they're kind of looking to actually kind of live more of their life basically in some of the other services that you provide, whether it's co-working or whatever else. Do you think of that in those terms? And is that something that you think that you'll be going much more into, or do you again kind of think it's an evolution driven by what your customers come to you as I think you were kind of painting the picture of the evolution of student hotels in and of itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we see is a few things. I mean, we focus, of course, our target audience are millennials and Gen Z, and I think there's a couple of trends that are, again, being accelerated by COVID, which are quite interesting for us as an industry. I was in a conference the other day where they said that Gen Zs and millennials are traveling more and spending more on hospitality than any other generation. Will that change when COVID comes in, or will the older generations be quite happy, sitting at home again? So I think when you look at the point system, I really think that is not exciting for the younger generations. When you look at the way they're focusing on sustainability, becomes a big issue as well. Will they be guilt tripped into traveling in the future? Is that an issue? Do we have to get to net zero as an industry? Otherwise, the young people won't want to go anywhere. And I think when you look at us and the students, you've got the student for 3 or 4 years. They hop between our hotels. They really travel around, and they get extra points for it many times on their courses, etc. And then when you look at when they become hotel guests, we see now they're the biggest customers out there. So it becomes a very interesting way. How do you keep them in your company? For us, it's very, we're in a unique position. Lifelong learning we can offer to all of our guests, and that means that we're able to really offer this to the co-working community, really adding value to their startup business or corporate business, etc. And when I connect that to the students, I'm really offering something unique in the student housing market. Nobody else can offer this extra curriculum, sort of adding to their sense of purpose. We see now that the generations coming in, they would rather have a personality test than a free PlayStation. So there's a massive shift in what the younger generations are looking for, what they want to achieve in themselves, the sense of being a creator, the sense of being very clear on what they want from their life, and sustainability and things play a much more important role. Being recognized, adding value to their experience or their purpose is what they're looking for. They're not looking for points or anything like that. So I think for us it really is building that lifelong journey, customer journey, understanding what we can offer them when they've left our building, either as a student and they're traveling, or as a young professional, the digital nomad, the new generation corporate travelers, etc. How do we keep in touch with them? Can we have the next generation of talent in our building? We're all looking for talent. We're all looking for the workforce. God knows where they've gone, but they're nowhere to be found. So we have thousands and thousands of the next generation in our building. So it's really for us to be able to find out what they're looking for and connect them. We're talking about partnerships earlier. For me, we talk about partnerships in historical form. We're just looking to share databases, and that's not a genuine partnership. I think what we're looking for and what our customers are looking for is genuine, authentic partnerships. How do we genuinely add value to each other's business? How do we genuinely add value to our customers? And how do we put them actually first? And if we can do that properly, then this generation will I think, really embrace you as a company and be loyal to you for a long time.
No, I love that. That's really beautiful, and it comes to the idea as kind of loyalty is built really from value, not from just basically kind of giving something away for free or for a reduced price. And I think that's a great mindset to have. And I think that again that kind of brings us really nicely to the last topic that we wanted to actually kind of cover on this, and that's again basically kind of moving away from some of these kind of conventional models and conventional thoughts basically. And I think to that basically I think we've covered the hybrid models. We're looking at kind of different different ways of actually kind of making sure that you can actually kind of monetize the different spaces and the different things that you actually kind of have there. But I think for most hoteliers kind of out there, this is quite a difficult way of doing that. And I'd maybe again basically love to start with you, Charlie, because I think you present a really compelling case of doing this as a kind of evolution of your property and of your brand. And as you look for growth and as you look for kind of value, you can basically kind of start looking over this basically through a way to kind of manage it over the life cycle of your brand. Would you say that this is the best way that you've encountered to kind of to get this mindset and to look at it? Or how much of this kind of forward planning basically does somebody actually kind of need?
You mean in terms of how we sort of build our business case and attribute the value creation for? Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this now for 9 years, so we're super young, and we're just coming out of our kids' shoes, or whatever you how you say it. But for me, COVID has been a nightmare, and I'm not stepping over all the trauma that's been caused by it, but it's been a massive opportunity for us as a business. I mean, our business plan, as everybody's, became a paperweight, and we've really been able to take stock and say, hey, how do we really embrace this many products under one roof? How do we really target the generations going forward, and where do we think that they will attribute value for us as a brand and a customer, and why would they come to us, and how do we turn that into a business model? And I think now is as a startup business, it's very difficult to add in sustainability or add in a little bit of purpose driven. And 9 years ago, to be honest, it was not the flavor of the month at all. So I think now is a very good moment for us to really embrace a community driven, purpose driven, sustainable company. Embracing, I mean, luckily we're embracing the Gen Zs and the millennials, so we're in a good place, and building a model and a business model and a business case. And we see it on investor level. There's the big institutions now are driving sustainability change much more than the private equity players, and that's been driven by the people paying the pensions to the pension funds. So there's a big shift there for the S out of the ESG, and the E is relatively easy to achieve. You can spend some money and you can get your building green. The S part is a difficult part, and us as an industry, especially when you've got transient guests that are coming in, it's very difficult to get that social cohesion and that social value. So I really think that community driven brands in the hospitality industry, where you've got longer stay clients there, is something that you're able to really add value on that S part, and therefore your business valuation becomes more desirable and valuable from the investor market. And so I think that you're seeing tweaks on the exit yields and stuff like that, and hopefully we don't get to a point where travel is embarrassing because of the carbon footprint that it's leaving. But it is something that we're aware of, and it's something that we consider could be a risk in the future. So it's that's downside protection is also investing in that side of stuff.
Yeah, I always kind of look at it from the perspective of, if we utilize our buildings better, basically, then that means maybe that a few more buildings don't need to go up, basically, kind of in their stead. And as we know, I think concrete and steel use a lot more carbon, basically, than the kerosene from flights. So I think that when you're looking at it from a global perspective, basically, I think that sometimes we need to look at it from that. So maybe to change things up, I'm going to ask Bertrand basically from that, because on the one side you've got you've got Charlie's and Rami's kind of brands basically kind of coming up in this way, and they can be quite focused. But I think for Accor, it's always going to be quite difficult, because you have so many kind of stakeholders. You operate on such a kind of global level. How do you think about how to innovate? And I think that Floor and your CTO has kind of intimated that you know a lot of that will come from technology, but you know it must be an incredibly difficult thing for you as a brand, basically with so many kind of stakeholders, to be able to kind of you know move away from this conventional thinking. How is that going to kind of be? Is that going to be an evolution, or do you think that it'll be much more radical, basically, from your perspectives? Oh, you're muted again. Phrase of the year. And there you
Okay.
are.
Yeah, the button is not working. No, it will be an evolution or revolution, because I think since the last 20 years, we were on our comfort with our two PMSs and our legacy systems on-prem, and now we know that we need to move. We need to move fast. We need to move in the cloud. So we have reviewed our PMS strategy. We are doing the same with the POS. Next year, we will start to do the same with all of the technologies, keys, PBX, all those kind of things. And yeah, we really need to move in the cloud and be on this green IT things. And yeah, we need to do a lot of change. And back to the sustainability or using different space in the hotels. France announced last week that they will change the way they are scoring the hotel with the stars. And two new things will be how you manage your spaces in your hotel. So do you do co-working? Are you sharing your swimming pool with the hotel just in front that has no swimming pool? Are you carbon free? All those kind of things. So yeah, I think the thing in our hospitality is evolving in a good way.
Nice. Yeah, like I think that the idea of kind of reusability and sustainability, I think, is going to be absolutely key. I think with that, basically, kind of Klaus, as a kind of fellow technology partner, you know, in this environment, what do you end up kind of prioritizing and focusing on, basically, from your perspective? Is it going to be do you go forward basically in this kind of way, or do you find that, you know, you'll still have to, you know, it'll again be a kind of transient evolution as we actually kind of go through from the old to the new?
Well, for us, it's very simple. We prioritize where we in conversations with the hospitality or accommodation industry believe we can generate the most and best, the most business outcome, the most positive business outcomes for our clients and for the industry at large. So we always prioritize what's important for our clients or for the industry, and where do we focus our resources and our development efforts on, in order to drive the industry forward and help them make more money, increase profitability and RevPAR or whatever it is that they're prioritizing. So that's how we operate. We have a client advisory panel that is represents a huge amount of rooms around the world, and they provide us constant input and feedback, and we use their feedback as well as many other feedbacks. As you know, Richard and you and I, we have quite a few conversations on an ongoing basis, and the likes, right, with many other companies. So we take a lot of feedback in, and then we put that into our development roadmap. I think we've covered a lot of the themes, right? Profit optimization, big thing. You know, a lot of people still starting on revenue management, so that's another thing. The long tail of the industry hasn't really gotten there yet. I think this whole convergence between revenue, distribution, marketing, and loyalty is becoming more and more relevant. You know, how do you infuse other systems with more science, so to speak? How do you make CRM smarter, and how do you make a CRS smarter, and how do you make sure that the data flows freely, which is a big challenge? And then how do you move into that merchandising model that we've talked about, right? And how do you do that for all revenues across all accommodation providers within the hospitality context, right? So that's kind of where we feel the priority should be, is optimizing as many revenue streams as possible down to the profit level, and then do that with marketing, sales, loyalty, and distribution in mind. So it becomes more of a commercial focus rather than a revenue focus. So that's the journey we've been on, and we feel we get a lot of positive feedback and input on that from the industry at large.
Mm-hmm. Great, and maybe just to finish it off with you, Rami, before we go to some of the questions. You know, do you think that the dominant model, basically from an operator's perspective, will really kind of be, you know, I think the way that you're, you know, I think that you're looking at it from the perspective of, you know, being a technology first operator. So do you look at it as actually kind of, you know, going towards some sort of standardization within kind of trends that you see, or do you actually kind of look at the fact that every property or every type of property basically will kind of need its own kind of special cocktail to bring the best out of that property, and that you know, the model that will be the best basically will work in that scenario?
Yeah. Excuse me. It's more the latter for us. I think, you know, to the second bullet on your screen here, I think there are repeatable things that are constant at every hotel. Typically those things are back office related, and those are good candidates for automation. And then the constraint on the consumer facing side is obviously real estate. Properties in our hotels or hotels in our portfolio, you know, some have gyms, some have lobbies, some don't. Some have food and beverage, some don't. Some have great walking distance attractions, some don't, etc. And I do think that real estate things and operational models need to flex to real estate or adapt to real estate. Unless, of course, you own your own brand and you're very picky about your real estate and all of that has the same constant pillars. So for us, we're trying to solve a problem that solves all the constant things and enables the hoteliers to really focus on their specific cocktail, if you will, and spend less time on the mundane things. And you know, I think the back office functions are the more complex and the harder to get correct anyway. So technology is a great enabler of solving that problem.
Great. No, and I really love that idea that I think Bertrand was talking about, that all of us, or all of the hoteliers out there also kind of start looking at you know, maybe the outside of their property to see if they can basically kind of add in certain things in the same way that we're kind of adding in apps from a technology side. So thank you so much for this. I think that this has been a really wide-ranging conversation, but let's go maybe quickly to the questions before the team starts abusing me for, again, kind of going over the time. So let's go to Diana first. What if IT partners can't keep up with hotels' creativity? There are still booking engines which can't do day rooms or combined availabilities, room and spa, etc. or e.g. That's a great question, and you know, like, I think that that's why you need to kind of sharpen your whip to the IT vendors. But how do you think about it, basically from a creativity perspective? Maybe Charlie, I think that you're great at kind of looking at that and having a great vantage point, basically, of what's great. And
does Diana work for Mews, Richard?
No. She, I think this is, like, you know, probably against Mews. You know, I think, like, sometimes we try and sell the future a little bit too early.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it is insane when you take a step back. I mean, we've just employed a new sort of head of hotel, and she comes from a digital background, and we presented to her, you know, the sort of 20 million euros we're investing in the tech stack, and she whispered to us, she went, well, this is the dark ages, you know, and the hospitality industry is really, we are in the dark ages in terms of tracking our customers, offering their customers, making it simple for our customers to buy different things. I mean, you know, you would think that the shopping basket would have existed a long time ago, in a hotel booking engine by indeed being able to book a spa and stuff like that. So I think there is a movement here going on. I think you guys are really at the pinnacle of it for sure. This year we bring our co-working and all of our meeting and event space into your system, and which is a big step forward. I think what's interesting is, we all need, we need, the customer needs. How do we turn that into a universal working engine? How do we turn that into something that the app is enabling that to be done as quick as you go? So the technology is still to be invented in many ways. I think you and a few people in this room are leading the way to really try and innovate it. But so we'll get there. Not sure if I answered her question, but
no.
There's only one answer. It's change your partner, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
What other answer is there? If it doesn't meet your needs, pick somebody else. Right?
Klaas, I don't think it even exists yet. I mean, it really doesn't exist. This system is still being built by this industry. So I think it's we're a few years away, and for sure then the first iteration, even with you, Richard, we're going to learn as we make up. I think realistically we're sort of five years away before you can genuinely walk into a hotel, log into the app and open your door, check your room, pay your room, buy your coffee, book a spa, blah 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 blah. I mean, and have a seamless journey from one hotel to the other hotel. I mean, this is really just not possible yet.
Yeah.
I'd also just chime in. I think it's important to not just pick a IT provider that has a feature today, but really think into the future. It's obviously quite painful to change PMSs or other major systems. So you should look at the vision and the kind of product roadmap of that IT partner, if you will, and their funding. So obviously Mews has raised a bunch of money, and not to be a salesman for you guys, but whatever, we started with you guys several years ago, and you've obviously innovated quite a bit since then. So it's not a static decision to make.
Yeah, like I think that for me, basically, like, taking my Mews hat off, basically, and thinking back to being a hotelier, that like the whole reason why Mews exists, basically, is just the fact that I kind of refuse to believe that it's not possible to actually kind of to be able to actually kind of to satisfy your creativity. So I think the main thing that I would advise every single hotelier out there is to think that actually having creativity is the best thing that you can have, and you will find, just trust in human ingenuity, that something will exist, basically. And if it doesn't, just make sure you sharpen that whip, basically, and make sure that, like, that the technology partner that you're working with, really feels the fact that it's their job to innovate. That's what they're there to do. Okay, so maybe to the next one. Leah, what are the biggest opportunities that you see for hospitality in 2022? Maybe Bertrand, I'll go to you, because you probably have the largest vantage point.
Well, I would say contactless. Contactless is really one of the big opportunity for next year. The keyless as well, because we are already working on the keyless, as you know. So keyless is with the Accor keys really something we want to develop. But contactless is maybe the one that are asked by our hoteliers. And yeah, for me that will be the two.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Anyone else has any thoughts about this?
Stay open. Right.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
A lot of hotels are still struggling with labor, yeah, and cost and profitability and paying their loans and whatnot back. So I think stay open. And the other thing I would say is, if government allows you to just be creative in where you see opportunities and run after opportunities that are emerging very quickly. I think we've never been in an environment where you see things changing day to day. We've just seen that over the last few days, and you need to be on your feet and be proactive about optimizing opportunities as they arise. Mm-hmm. Things will open, things will close. Opportunities will open, opportunities will shut down. But you need to be kind of on the toes and run where the opportunities are. Yeah. I think that's the biggest opportunity.
I'll just chime in with my bias that back office automation, I think, is where there should be a focus on opportunity, just by virtue of the labor costs growing and revenues being unstable. Reducing your fixed cost structure.
Nice. Charlie, you're the only one that's left now.
Yeah, I mean, diversified top line, really embracing that model. And I think there's a lot of people, I think, Bertrand, you're also really exploring that, trying to bring in different business lines. And, I think that's something we've learned. That I think the hospitality industry, and it's something I learned that you used to sort of underpin your revenue by doing deals with the airline crews and stuff like that, and that was your base. Yeah, we've seen that's not so stable in this pandemic. So really finding a diversified top line that, and we do it with students, of course, that underpins, and they have a huge added value to the rest of the whole experience. So for me, it's a win-win. But I think that's going to be a big shift for the industry.
Nice. So maybe moving on to the next question, I hope that we have time for one more. So how important or not is lifetime value analytics? Maybe Rami, I'll go to you since you hate this concept so much. No, I'm kidding.
I think it's a hard thing to measure, so certain proxies can be used for it. But from my perspective, if you don't have a way of, there's a big conversation about business intelligence versus decision intelligence, and if there aren't decisions that you can make based on this type of analysis, then what's the data really serving you with? So certain proxies for LTV can be helpful for sure, but I think it's certainly a simplified approach today is how we think about it: direct bookings and NPS score related.
Nice. Yeah, I think NPS is a fantastic tool. So Net Promoter Score, if anyone's come across it, then I think that's a great proxy. So I think that this is probably all the time that we have for.
Actually, Richard, we have a few more minutes. So
incredible! This is the first time that this has ever happened to me.
I know, and that's actually what we're saying on this side too.
So maybe actually, because there's a couple of great other questions basically that we can actually cover from there. So maybe actually, so with this one, so how do you assess the capex of agile adapting to volatile market trends like the COVID pandemic? The risk adverse stakeholders might be against these flexibility. So I think it's the fact that it might be that in an adverse environment, maybe your investors or the property owners that you're with might not want to actually kind of invest in things like, for example, contactless technology, in things like the keys and things like that. How do you think about like what types of I guess basically kind of what kind of reasoning do you need to kind of have, and how would you think about measuring that kind of ROI basically from that perspective? I think maybe actually all four of you can have a look at this, or maybe Klaus, are you building something to measure this kind of ROI?
Actually, it's interesting because we did, I don't know if you know that or not, but we did launch a benefits measurement module within our system, which allows you to constantly evaluate and see what the benefits are. But that's just a side note. I think what we've seen over the last 12 months is the companies that are the most forward-looking have prioritized their spending obviously very diligently and have allocated spending towards what will make them competitive in the future. And if you've just heard that, I don't know, many people don't do that, but we do that. You listen to all the earnings calls over the last few months or a few weeks, actually, the Q3 earnings calls. And I think out of the top 5 CEOs, the top three of them mentioned revenue management and pricing as a key competitive advantage, right? So we've seen a huge influx in prioritization of pricing and revenue management, which is obviously just one area, and it's But it's been interesting to see that a lot of companies have seen the pandemic as an opportunity to invest in their tech stack, completely renew their environment that they're working in. And for example, a company like Wyndham has touted that greatly with the whole move into the cloud, and other companies. Floor has done a great job at Accor as well, of course. And those are the companies that are going to stay ahead and move ahead over the next couple of years, because they have spent that time to completely invest in their technology, in their processes, back of house automation, and all of that.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, this is genuinely a huge trend that I think that everyone's kind of seen. And on the stock market, you really, if you invest in technology and if you actually kind of kind of extend in that way, maybe not from a capex perspective basically, but using a lot of the software as a service tools basically that are out there, I think that does actually kind of add a lot to the value. So, and I think that there are some you know, increasingly so investors that are mainly looking at the kind of the tech enabled businesses as basically the ones that they mainly want to kind of invest into.
Yeah, just a data point here. Sorry, you know, I was listening to the CIO of Hilton yesterday speaking at the AWS reInvent conference, and he was talking about how they have moved everything into the cloud and AWS. It's fascinating to hear him talk about tripling the amount of throughput that they can get through the CRS now, from maybe 150 million transactions a day to 500 million transactions a day, and how that's enabled them to reduce costs by 34% or something like that, right? So you do have an ROI on investment spent in technology, and you can have the business cases and the success stories that you can build out around those. Yeah. That's just on the technology side. Right?
I would say that basically celebrating the cloud in 2021 really shows just how behind our industry actually is. If that's, you know, one of the main kind of things.
Very true.
All power to everyone who's undertaking that. I don't know if Rami or Bertrand, do you have any points that you'd like to make on this?
I'll just chime in that, yeah, I'd echo the point we talked about earlier, and working with, you know, advanced cloud-based software providers who are investing themselves in adapting, and you know, minimize your property level investing in IT and leverage a great partner.
Yeah, same thing. Moving to cloud will help them to reduce their investment in hardware, in maintenance, in upgrades, and doesn't make sense in 2021 to go with an on-prem solution anymore.
Richard, I'm not gonna, but I really would like to answer Stefan and Leo's question. I think it's such a combination of those ones.
Right, let's go. So let's go to Stevens. What are your views on luxury branded residences and the opportunity to expand through the sale of residences and consequent revenue share model? Is that the one that you wanted to go to, or did you want to go to?
Sorry, I got. Do you think the hospitality brands can disrupt the co-working market?
Let's go to that one first, then.
And then I think where the luxury brands as well, and the branded residence, so the branded residence, for me is really interesting. You know, I honestly believe if you walk into the Amsterdam City project of the student hotel, we offer the best co-working in the city, because we have co-working, we have a huge lobby, we have F&B, we have a gym, and we have 570 rooms upstairs. So the facilities that we offer, that co-working is just on a different league, and no co-working company could justify that common space. So by blending these different facilities, you really offer an amazing product for everyone. When I look at that on a branded basis, I mean, you know, if you look at Four Seasons were to do branded residence with co-working, imagine the type of people that would be a member of that co-working. I mean, it would be really interesting. You see co-working in New York and LA of Spring Place. It's like 3,000 euros a month membership. You've got the CEO of the Bank of America who goes in there. I mean, the people that you are sitting next to in these spaces is just off the charts. And it's all relative. I mean, our co-working network, full of startups, full of tech startups, full of entrepreneurs, full of digital nomads. So they're really helping each other at that level. So I think when you look at the branded residences and you look at, then you combine that with co-working markets and creating that community, you know, it really becomes an opportunity to for us as a hospitality company to really focus on what the customers are looking for while they're traveling and while they're in their home cities as well.
Thanks for that, Charlie. I was just going to jump in and say, like, it's, you know, I think there's such a popular belief, and rightfully so, that, you know, hospitality has had such a difficult time in the pandemic. But, you know, there are these incredible opportunities coming through and emerging business models coming through. And I think this is one of them that I was really interested in your point of view on this, because it's clear when you go to the website for student hotels that, you know, you're marketing multiple types of products and services, and it's quite frankly, you know, could be disruptive to some of the WeWorks and some of the co-working businesses. And it's been one of those questions we ask ourselves, which is, you know, the real estate is there, and certainly the level of service is there for the hospitality industry to really disrupt a couple of different segments.
Yeah. No,
absolutely.
Mm.
And then, and I think it's actually the kind of the main point. It's basically kind of building services out of the community that you create with your brand, rather than basically kind of, you know, building something and hoping that they will come, and really kind of looking at also the real estate as basically something that you can iterate on, basically, to actually kind of serve that community and not the other way around. I think that's a really, really great perspective and a great way of looking at that. I guess, Rami, Bertrand, do you see it in a similar way, basically?
Yeah, and I think Sébastien Bazin, when he decided to go with Wojo like 4 years ago, was a visionary, because now I don't even know how many of our hotels has a co-working space in there, but we have a lot of them. I've been in a Mama shelter in Paris 3 weeks ago, and the co-working the co-working space was really busy with young girls, with all kind of people. So yeah, I definitely think that we can disrupt the co-working market.
Nice. Rami, are you inserting?
I think I'm not a co-working expert here, but power to everybody that's solving that problem.
Nice. So maybe for Ian's question, which is, you know, which of the following do guests value the most? Free, uncapped, high speeds internet, private meeting rooms, healthy meal options, lounge to host guests. I would say that, you know, that different segments are going to kind of value different things. Different customers are going to kind of value different things, and I think it is really, really important for hotels to really do that first audit of who is your current customer, who are the people that basically are coming in first. But maybe there are some trends basically around this. Again, Rami, Charlie, what do you think are the most important things for guests right now?
Yeah, I think different guests have different utility curves, and so I think this really depends on the hotel in terms of what people are looking for. Leisure hotels probably care less about the Wi-Fi and meeting rooms than business-centric hotels. So I think it's not to give a cop-out answer, but it's a different utility function depending on who the guest is. And again, we're biased because we have so many different hotels. We try to narrow in on the things that are consistent, which are reliability of the hospitality experience, and you know, having the standards of Wi-Fi, cleanliness, and ease of access and ease of accessibility with check-in, check-out, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for my community, if you took away the internet capabilities, there'd be murder. Yeah, I mean, internet, and you know, I was yesterday in Italy, and I was in the Four Seasons, and just to get online was a pain in the ass. You know, suddenly you're just giving yourself a personal hotspot because it was just easier. So for me, I mean, yeah, the internet capabilities, the connection capabilities is probably number one on this list for pretty much everyone, I think. But difficult to. We don't have. I'm not that old yet, so I don't know if it's so important for them yet. But.
Bertrand, do you find that also for you, upgrading internet capabilities of all the hotels?
Yeah, I would say that Wi-Fi is the top one, and if you go to luxury, it will be private lounge meeting room better than Wi-Fi, but Wi-Fi will be the top one.